It took me a while to decide which games to showcase for my very first video. Octopath Traveler made its PC debut on the 7th of June, nearly a year after its Switch release. Warhammer Chaos Bane came out on the 31st of May, and within days got mixed reviews, which is a shame since I have personally been looking for an entry to the Warhammer franchise that doesn't include 40k at the end of it. Ultimately, I chose to start with SteamWorld Quest, Hand of Gilgamech, the latest masterpiece by Image & Form Games, and I don't regret it. Differentiating itself from Dig and Heist, SteamWorld Quest is a card-based RPG with turn-based combat. Whenever you start a fight, you draw 6 cards from the deck. Each card represents an action that your characters can take, and characters will take actions based on the order which you pick the cards. Some cards gain special effects when played after other cards, and if you play 3 cards of the same color, you can get a 4th free action depending on the weapon you have equipped. Creating decks, gearing up your characters, and deciding which cards to play in what order all require proper thinking, and it's important to master these, especially during the game's difficult stages. If there's one thing that the SteamWorld games have in common, it's personality. You start your adventure with Armely, a low-born robot who dreams of becoming a hero. The moment she starts narrating the party's actions, you know she's the hero of the story. Her alchemist companion named Copernica is burdened with keeping her straight as she rushes headfirst into every situation and makes stupid decisions in the name of heroism. The dynamic between Armely and Copernica is a delight to follow throughout the adventure. Each member that joins in adds more to the party dynamic, and their interactions serve to both entertain you and drive you to beat the game. In between each fight, you will be traversing beautiful, diverse environments, and in my case, attempt to find all of the secret chests and fail. These secrets are fairly well hidden and contain goodies that will help you in the adventure. Thankfully, the game does not create intrusive random encounters, so you're free to search as long as you want. Enemies instead can be found as you explore, and if you get your party leader to strike them before the battle begins, the enemies start with a portion of their health already missing. It took me around 24 hours to beat the game, partially because I wanted to collect all the cards, but mostly because I'm not very good at the game. Crafting a card requires materials that you obtain after a battle. It requires some grinding to create them, and even more to upgrade them. However, a good chunk of the game time involves challenging boss fights. Some of you will see through the game's mechanics and beat this game with the least amount of effort required. But for most of us, and especially myself, some of these bosses will give you a run for your money, which I confidently say is worth spending on SteamWorld Quest.
Client expired.
Steve cleared for return to Void Ark. P45 filed. Steve cleared for docking.
If an RPG did not tickle your fancy this week, maybe a roguelite shooter in Void Bastards is right up your alley. You take the role of a client, which is the game's code for somebody who did something just a little bit wrong, but now has to pay for it, likely with his life. If the personality of SteamWorld Quest is very light and whimsical, Void Bastards takes a more dark and cynical note.
Your action item. Restart the FTL drive. Okay, I need to see your citizen card to authorize the restart. Oops. As a WCG penal client, your citizen card has been shredded. Don't worry, you'll find parts to construct another one from on nearby vessels.
The comic book aesthetic isn't just artistically brilliant here. It's also well integrated in the UI. Speech bubbles appear to let you know that you can interact with certain objects. Sound effects have textual representation, so you'll usually know an enemy is behind a door before you open it. Comic panels serve as the windows and tabs that contain menus and inventories. The game feels like the old Doom titles, given how the enemy models and sprites behave. If you set the FOV to 140, it looks just as silly as the old Quake titles look at high FOVs. I personally keep it at 100. You start the game with a scant amount of resources, and if you expect to survive, you have to scavenge the abandoned ships all around the Sargasso Nebula. Jumping from one ship to the next costs 1 food and 1 fuel. You can either dock to obtain more resources from the ship, or simply skip to the next one if you feel that docking in the ship is a little too risky. To help you decide between these two options, the game hints at what might be found in the ship: goodies, baddies, and anything else. You start the game with only a simple pistol, but as you progress, you'll be able to craft new weapons or indeed upgrade that pistol. Because resources are scarce, you have to figure out ways to avoid combat or engage in it in the most efficient way. Sometimes, you'll want to let an enemy kill the others around him. Other times, you'll want to lock a door to avoid combat entirely. You don't want to spend too much ammo fighting one enemy, and you definitely don't want to get surrounded by them.
Life support systems.
This game has a permadeath mechanic, so when your character dies, a new one takes his or her place. The good news is that the new weapons your previous character has crafted will carry over to the next one. Each new character comes with its own traits, ranging from very beneficial to utterly detrimental, so you do have to play in a different manner each run to take these new traits into account. Void Bastards left a good first impression on me. I haven't beaten it like I did SteamWorld Quest, so I can't exactly give a recommendation. I trust that you can scan the gameplay footage yourself and draw your own conclusions.
Recon established and confirm heavy fortification near enemy comm facility.
Ah, this game does not need an introduction. For those of you with RTX cards, Quake 2 RTX adds yet another game to the short list of titles that support the feature you paid a bloody premium for. The game itself is an amazing first-person shooter that boasts challenge, atmosphere, and blood-pumping action. The RTX features simply enhance the experience that you would have had with the original game. The rocket explosions and gun effects are now more authentic. The ray tracing makes certain sections of the map appropriately brighter or indeed appropriately darker. Despite the new coat of paint, everything else about Quake 2 stays as is. The protagonist still jumps with an exaggerated The weapons still play like they used to, only now they are shinier. This is especially true for the super shotgun, and it seems just a little bit out of place. Don't get me wrong here, it looks freaking great, but you're in a hostile world fighting the Strogg on a near constant basis. You'd think the weapons would look just a little bit worn, but nope, this super shotgun still looks like it's new and constantly polished for a showcase. I feel that I have to set the right expectations for those who grew up with more modern titles. In Quake 2, you actually have to find ammo for your weapon, or health kits if you are dying, because enemies won't always drop what they have. You have to bump into objects or sometimes shoot them in order to interact with them. No press E to everything here. You need to take advantage of your environment, because charging at enemies mindlessly is not the best solution. Don't take unnecessary risks. and you don't have to look at it as cheesing when you're trying to potshot someone without getting hit. Do it! Finally, you do have to take risks and explore to find key items that allow you to progress to the next level. The maps aren't exactly linear, and they have winding paths that converge, so make it a point to intimately know each level. If you find your surroundings way too dark, it's probably because the environment options are set to current time. This means that if you're playing the game at midnight, the game will also look like it's midnight. Go to the options and change this to whatever time you like. I personally choose morning, though there are options for noon, evening, dusk, or night. You can also change the skybox. I personally like to use the Strogo skybox, because it's redder and it really feels like it's a foreign planet. But you can also pick the Earth skybox, which is as standard as you can get. The original skybox doesn't really give you the best lighting effects. You can still experience ray tracing, but it will be from the artificial light sources around. If it's too dark indoors, then the only thing that can help you is the flare gun. Just press F to equip it, and click to shoot a flare that will stay aflame for a few seconds. It consumes grenade ammo, so make sure to keep a few of those handy in case you need to navigate a dark corridor. I definitely recommend Quake 2 RTX to fans of the original game, and even those who have never touched a Quake game with a single-player campaign before. For the new blood out there, this game is definitely a change of pace from the multiplayer shooters that are popular today. You've just seen the top 3 games that caught my attention this week. What have you been playing? Share in the comments section the best game that you enjoyed this week. It could be an old game, a new game, a PC game, a console game, anything. As long as you enjoyed it, I'd love to hear what it is. Join me next time as I talk about E3 and all of its shenanigans. This is Speakerhead, your head speaker. Thank you for watching.